a little bit, right? It's
Yeah.
weird.
No,
It's not weird?
I don't know.
Oh. Okay. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a list of places when and where the hum has been reported. So in London and Southampton in the 1940s, Bristol, England in 1979, Largs, Scotland in the 1980s, Taos, New Mexico in 1992, Kokomo, Indiana in 1999, Vancouver, BC pre-2003, Calgary, Alberta in 2008, Windsor, Ontario in 2009, Woodland Country, Durham in England in 2011, County Kerry in Ireland in 2012, Seattle, Washington 2012, Wellington, New Zealand in 2012, the Italian National Research Council in Pisa, Italy in 2013, in Guadalajara in 2013, and Colima in 2013. So it seems to be getting more prevalent a little bit too, right?
I don't know if it's more prevalent or just people know that there's a way to
Report it.
complain about it.
They've heard,
Report it,
yeah. They've heard about it now. So now, did it just, like seeing Taos, I had thought that was an ongoing phenomenon. Did it just...
It is. I think that was the first
That's
report.
when it began. Okay.
Yeah. I already mentioned that there's an age kind of an age range for this. There's also apparently only 1/3 of the sufferers are male to 2/3 female, which is a little interesting as well, I feel. And there's a very defined age curve that people under the age of 45 tend to not hear the hum at all.
Well, I could almost see some easy answers to those
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah, I could too.
So only 1/3 of the hearers are men, correct?
Yeah.
And it's also people under 45 tend not to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that seems pretty easy to me because people who are above 45 are from the era when we didn't use a lot of safety precautions. So I'm talking large machinery all day long, and that was typically run by men in that day and age.
Okay, so riddle me this then,
that doesn't
Batman.
explain the proportion of males to females.
No,
so, yeah.
well, riddle me this, Batman. Many of the hum sufferers are either partially or mostly deaf. Partially or totally deaf. So there's not a good explanation for that. There's just not.
Okay.
Well, there might be, actually. But I do agree, though, that it's not surprising that people in the older age group would be more likely to have already sustained some sort of damage to their ears that could cause something like this to happen. It would make sense to me.
I also mentioned the left side more than the right side. And apparently some people who are affected by the hum, not all, but some can get relief from actually physically closing off their left ear. Just putting their hand over their ear.
The
Apparently that
earplugs
helps.
would let you sleep.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. It seems to be the physical act of putting the hand over the ear, but I could be...
Might just be the pressure.
It may just be, who
Turns
knows?
out if I put my Beats by Dr. Dre on my head, I don't hear the hum.
Weird! Because I don't hear anything.
Exactly.
This episode of Thinking Sideways brought to you by Beats by Dr. Dre.
So, what do you? Are there any known recordings of this hum?
Kind of.
Yeah.
There's a lot of YouTube videos of hums or hum-like phenomena, which is interesting and I think is actually a fairly solid argument against some of the theories we're going to talk about. But it's hard to tell. I mean, it's so easy to edit a video, especially the sound of video.
I was going to say...
There are a lot that I've watched and been like, well, that's just out of GarageBand. Like, I know that effect really well. But there are others that I've listened to that I'm like...
I've heard a lot of them where I want to hear this. This guy, wherever finds it, and you can tell that they have just gone in and cranked the volume. Because if you've ever listened to an audio track when it peaks out and it's just hitting the top, and the wind is really loud, and then things just keep hitting that upper range and getting cut off by the audio program, that's when I wonder how much these things are doctored to make it quote unquote hearable.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, but I think that there are a couple, and I will make my best effort to find them so that we can include them. Often they get taken down or whatever. I'll try my best to find some good ones so that we can put them on the website.
Yeah.
Because I think there are a few out there at least that are really compelling and interesting.
So is this hum Is it some mysterious creature humming a tune?
Maybe.
Yeah, or is it just
might
like
be.
The chupacabra?
Yeah, the chupacabra. There you go.
Finally, we figured it out.
Yeah, okay.
So I do want to talk about the
She
two.
didn't buy that at all. Did
Yeah.
you hear how enthusiastic she was about that theory?
Yeah, Jesus, we solved the mystery. We can start drinking beer now.
Oh, you're right. I do. Okay, I want to talk about two specific places because they've actually done research on both of them. So first, we're going to talk about Bristol, England, which was one of the first places, as you may recall in that list that I rapidly read off, where the hum was reported. About 800 people in this coastal city, which is Bristol, right, reported having heard a steady, like, thrumming sound, I guess, almost.
Oh.
Thrumming, that's a good word, right?
Yeah.
Which authorities kind of blamed on vehicular traffic and local factories working 24-hour shifts, which is, I guess, fair. Maybe.
Now, these people that hear this, they hear it all the time, right? Or they not intermittently, constantly?
They hear it more at night than during the day, but I guess that seems fairly mundane if it is indeed a factory or something, because there's more outside noise kind of interfering with that, right, during the day. When you're trying to lay down to go to sleep, harder to...
Yeah, that would be
right?
obnoxious. But it never, for these people that reported it never stopped. It just kept going 24/7.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
So they did some studies, and the audiologist I was talking about earlier conducted these studies in 2003. The hum frequency was at 36 hertz. And funny side note, before we start talking about 36 hertz, they were instructed on how to construct aluminum helmets to be placed over their head when the hum was happening.
You're kidding.
Nope.
I love it.
They taught them how to make tinfoil hats.
Yep, because they thought they would help.
You are making this up.
Nope.
How did they work? Well,
I don't know. There were no reports.
Wow, that guy fleeced them.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Totally
Yeah.
did.
Custom-made hats while you wait.
Only $200. Let's talk about hertz frequencies a little bit.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about them when we talk about Taos in a minute too. But hertz are kind of a weird amorphous thing, right? Not a lot of us kind of know what they sound like or anything. So the hum has been recorded at kind of like 26 to maybe like, I don't know, 56 hertz or something like that. So just to give you a little bit of reference, here's what 20 hertz would sound like.
Well, and one quick thing I'd like to say to everybody, as we've discovered, when you're listening to this, depending on the system that you're using, you might or might not hear this. Some computer, laptops especially, don't seem to have the speaker capacity to produce the sounds. So if you're listening to that, you might want to take a second and get some headphones. But let's go ahead and listen to 20 hertz.
And here's what 40 would sound like. And 60. And as Steve says, 80 is heinous, so we're not even going to go there. The Bristol hum is, as we said, the 36, which is pretty dang close to 40 hertz.
Yeah, it's a good frame of reference.
Yeah, so that's kind of what that sounded like. Put your aluminum hats on, everyone. In Taos, the hum kind of started being reported in 1991. Residents complained of a low-level rumbling noise, is what they called it. I think it may just be a little bit of semantics, right? Thrumming and rumbling.
Yeah, they're very similar words
kind of
to
things,
describe that kind of
Yeah,
sound.
one's way more cool and British. And the other one sounds like it's from New Mexico.
Rumbling. Yeah.
So a team of researchers decided, hey,
Let's go research, huh?
Let's go research. They're researchers from Los Alamos National Laboratory, the University of New Mexico, and Sandia National Laboratories, and apparently other regional experts. They were unable to identify the source of the sound, but they were able to identify the range of the sound, which was 48 to 72 hertz. That seems really loud.
Yeah,
Well,
That's
really
what's reported.
That's wavelength though. That's not free. That's not like amplitude.
Right, but it just seems like really painful to listen to.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that frequency
72
sounds like
hertz.
to listen to. But I
Well,
mean,
let's find out. What's 72 hertz?
Yeah, here it is. Yeah. So no, but that's just higher pitched sounds have a shorter wavelength. Lower pitched ones have a longer wavelength.
Right.
It's kind of like light. I mean, blue has got a shorter wavelength than red has. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that blue is going to hurt your eyes more. That all depends on how bright the blue light that's shining in your eyes is.
Right.
So it can be dim. And so you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with sound.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Just for listener reference, though, 72 hertz.
Hurts a lot.
According to Steve, one other one I'd like to mention is the Auckland hum, which is Auckland, New Zealand, and a Dr. Tom Moyer of the Massey University in Auckland recorded it, which is awesome. We'll put a link to that on the website if we can find it.
Of course we can find it.
And apparently its spectral density peaked at a frequency of 56 hertz.
Right on.
All right, so that's what we know about the hum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a lot.
It's a lot of great, super awesome information, huh?
Yeah.
It's. I know we just listened to them. It's a lot of numbers and it's a lot of ranges, and it's hard to. And this is, I'm going to say this, I said this before, but it's hard for me to imagine what that's like with background noise. I mean, listening to it on its own, pure, that would drive me bonkers very quickly, but with so much background noise, it's just hard for me to kind of think what that would be like. Then again, I live near a kind of a big road, so I randomly hear, trucks jake braking, I think is the one example you made. I hear that, and I don't even really pay attention to it just because I tune it out naturally. So to me, this is something I would just naturally tune out.
Yeah, or like the light rail or like the train or anything like that. You know, when you live near things like that, you just tune them out. But for whatever reason, this seems to impact people differently than just like a mundane whatever sound going past.
Well, probably because it goes on all the time. Well, I would think that you would just get used to it and stop hearing it.
So we're going to jump into the theories. And one of the theories is tinnitus, and I want to say a little caveat about all of these theories first, but I would say that it's a lot like tinnitus in that, like, if you have tinnitus, you hear it all the time. You don't actually get used to it, and it can become more or less annoying, of course, depending on your kind of moods and things like that. And you never get used to it. You never tune it out.
Yeah, you do.
It's always there. Tinnitus?
Yeah.
You tune tinnitus out.
I tune it out constantly.
You tune it out if you've got other things going on, but when you're laying asleep in bed, I'm
evidently better at tuning things out.
Apparently you are, because I can't do it at all. So the caveat that I do want to say is that most researchers who are actively investigating the hum express kind of utter confidence that the hum is a real thing. It's not like a psychological disorder. It's not something that's just like happening in people's heads, and it's not a hoax, which is, those are kind of three things that people bring up. They say, well, it's just something wrong with these people, or they're just lying, or whatever.
That would
but
be the
most
first place I'd start,
researchers
yeah.
say, no, we do believe this is actually happening, it's real, and it's something external, not internal. Fair?
So,
Fair.
okay, no tinnitus. All right.
I want to jump into some fun theories first before we say things like, it's tinnitus. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, my first favorite theory is that it's a leftover gift from Nikola Tesla.
What?
Yeah, that it's a result of a low-frequency electromagnetic radiation that is audible only to some people, right? And that there are apparently verified cases that individuals there is a certain percentage of the population that is extra sensitive to hearing noises like this, which would be, I think, about 2%, which is the population that can hear hums.
But radiation is not not noise, though. That's like radiation, like
electromagnetic radiation.
Yeah, which is like light,
apparently
radio waves, all that stuff. All that stuff is on the electromagnetic spectrum.
Apparently,
some people can actually translate radiation into noises.
Yeah, apparently.
They also get the local radio station on their fillings.
Teeth. Yeah.
It's entirely possible.
I mean, it's a range that's outside of normal human hearing, to be sure, but apparently there's a certain percentage of the population who can actually hear these things.
Well,
People talk about going to see,
but you can't hear like radio waves. I mean, I could see where maybe your brain somehow receives them and translates them into a perceived sound that your brain thinks it's hearing,
or something.
But they're not actually hearing anything.
Right.
Right. Their brain thinks they're hearing something.
Right.
Well,
it's translating into something.
And that's what your brain does. It translates what the ear bones are.
Which would help to explain why deaf people can hear the hum, right? That it's not actually a sound, that it's a wave that hits people in a certain way.
Now, explain to me again, this people who are deaf are reporting it, or is it people who are hard of hearing?
Both.
Okay, because what I think of is for people who can't hear, they're much more sensitive to pressure. If you've ever been to an event, I don't know if you guys have ever done this. I did it once, and it was a dance for a local organization that was a deaf organization, and the music was blaringly loud, and they had the bass cranked up. And if you've ever been near a speaker when the bass is thumping and you can feel that pressure wave, and that's why I question if it's really a sound if they're reporting it, because the way that they know to interpret these loud noises or these things like this is they know it's kind of a pressure wave. It's just kind of a learned response that I tell you that's what it is, so now okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So that's why I question that, because it seems more of a pressure issue than a sound issue.
It may be. Joe, you had a theory about Elf?
Actually,
is it one of the ones with the little green pointy shoes?
Well, elves. About the elves. Well, some people, this is not a theory I came up with. Some people have speculated that it might be extremely low frequency radio waves that are kind of similar to this Tesla thing.
Yeah.
And the U.S. actually has, and the Soviets had, I think still have, these transmitters in the Midwest. Actually, they're in like Wisconsin and Michigan. And they were actually disbanded in 2004. But they were used for communicating with submarines. The extremely low frequency radio waves can penetrate seawater, much better than high frequency ones or just very low frequency ones. Because these wavelengths are so huge, I mean, we're talking enormous wavelengths, like miles long. That means that essentially you can beam very simple messages, like a little 2 or 4 letter code to a submarine, and they will receive them at a rate of about maybe 2 characters a minute. That's how long these radio waves are. And then that's just kind of a doorbell kind of thing. That's ringing a bell. They come up to a shallower depth where they can receive radio transmissions and get instructions from home.
Interesting.
So we had, and the people have hypothesized, and there's been some other conspiracy theories. There was even an episode of The X-Files that was done about ELF.
Oh.
Did you ever watch The X-Files?
No.
Yeah.
It was the episode where Mulder and Scully were out in Nevada, and they just happened upon that there was this guy who was like driving wildly across the state, kept driving ever further westward, because he had this thing in his head from getting ELF waves, and the only way he could stop his head from exploding was to keep driving at high speed westward. And sort of, I don't know what was going to happen to him. I can't remember how it all worked out. I think eventually he couldn't go any further and his head exploded or something like that.
Oh man.
Yeah, but that's anyway. So, but at least for America, we're not broadcasting in ELF anymore. The Soviets
or so they tell us.
Yeah, really. No, they've got better ways to do it now. But
so to kind of piggyback on that, like America has these weird things going on. Theory is HARP. Yeah.
Not the loan program.
No, that's ARP.
Not the musical instrument.
No, not the musical instrument. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program that's up in...
high frequency active auroral research.
Auroral, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a hard word to say.
It is.
It's up in Alaska. It's super technical. I'm not going to get into it. There are a lot of acronyms. Basically, it's a really advanced piece of technology that is supposed to analyze the ionosphere and investigate the potential for enhancing things like radio communication and surveillance. Right. Joe just looked really concerned, like I had not accurately portrayed what was going on. I mean, at its most basic level, it's super easy to Google and find a bunch of articles about. The reason that people kind of talk about this maybe having to do with the hum is because Harp is actually a really huge conspiracy theorist. And actually, we may do an episode on Harp. I haven't totally decided yet.
Well, it's not a conspiracy theorist. It's a target for conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, a target for conspiracy theorists who say that it's capable of modifying weather, disabling satellites, and exerting mind control over people, and that it's being used as a weapon against terrorists.
Well, that's not such a bad thing.
Yeah, they're